Hello, welcome back to the Sexy Confident Life. I am rocking through the Sexy Confident Life principles that I live by, and I'm so excited to dive into principle number 7. Lucky number 7, and this is a quick disclaimer for all of those of you who are wondering. I do coach health and wellness, but I am not a registered dietitian. I am not a food expert, right? I don't know the biochemistry of everything that's put into food or how it's made. So before I jump into this topic, which is principle number 7, get addicted to real food. There are so many amazing nutritionists out there and food experts and foodies, that's what I am, who are just like so over the processed foods in the middle aisles of the grocery store, right? We know as a population, just common sense, that the more we eat real food and the less processed, packaged food, the healthier we're going to be, right? And so I know that this topic today might seem so simple, and today is like a messy bun, no makeup kind of day where, yesterday I was shooting on Pop Sugar and I had all the makeup and the glam and the glitz. And, today is more so about how I live every day, and that is how I can really fuel myself, right? And the only way that I can really do that is if I live by this principle of eating and getting addicted to real food over processed and packaged food. And if you decide that this is something you'll start to adopt in your life, it's going to change how you feel. It's going to change how you digest food and how you convert that food to energy, how you eliminate that food. And so the whole breakdown of what happens between the time it goes in your mouth and out the other end is a lot of chemical reactions and digestive processes happen, and energy is released and produced, and you generate so much from the food that you eat that you've got to remember that the decision you make when you start that whole process, that is, you grab whatever it is, you put it in your mouth and you chew, and it goes through that process. Now, I want you to kind of walk with me here today with patience and with grace, and knowing that I'm not a registered dietitian or, a food expert or anything. I'm just like you. I'm just like every woman who wants to have incredible energy, optimal fitness and health, and live a long disease-free life as much as possible in my own control, right? And what we can control is what we feed ourselves. And last week I talked about conscious eating, and that's just being aware of how food makes you feel. And that whole concept is kind of in alignment with this week. And this is as far as I'm really going to go when it comes to food, because I like to keep the topic of food so simple and so down to earth, because I think that too many people complicate this topic only because it's a very interesting topic, right? I'm interested in food. I always want to hear about what other people are eating, what kind of meal plans and recipes are out there. But I think that we forget about the basics when we start getting really interested in food and what we should be eating and what is best for our body. And last week I talked about, well, what's best for your body is really how you feel from that food. Because if you eat something and it makes you feel awesome, but it makes your friend feel bloated, then that food isn't to blame. It's just that your body reacts differently to that food. And so this week, we're more so talking about the addiction to real food versus processed and packaged foods. Because I know a lot of people find it more convenient, obviously, to, throw something from the package into the microwave or into the oven and get it done quick and easy. I get it. Right? So sometimes that's the course that you take. And you know what? I'm not pointing fingers. It's all good. Sometimes you're so busy and out of your mind that that's the only resource that you have, right? But a lot of times you can get into a routine just mindlessly like that, where you might have the time to cook a potato instead of throwing in those frozen French fries, right? You might have time to make that, bean salad, versus buying that the canned beans with, I don't know, all the other mixtures in it. I don't know. But it's really important to think about, okay, well, am I just like buying cereal every month, or have I had oats in a while? You know, have I gone back to the real food, or am I always resorting to what's conveniently packaged for me and ready to go? Just ask yourself that question right now, because as I go through some of the principles that I live by, and especially when it comes to eating real food over the packaged and processed foods, I bring this up because I'll make cookies every once in a while, right? I freaking love my cookies. Oatmeal raisin and snickerdoodles. Those are my two favorites. And a lot of people laugh. They're like, I can't believe you make cookies, Anna. That's so crazy. I'm like, of course. Like, I'm a human being. Hello. Who doesn't like cookies? But I always tell people, hey, if you're going to have dessert, make it. Why? Because one, when you make your own dessert, and I'm not saying make dessert every week, okay? That's not a good idea, because then you'll eat it. If it's in the house, you're screwed, right? But if it's holiday time and you want some cookies in the house, make the dang cookies, right? Because if you made the cookies, number one, you get to see exactly what's in those cookies, right? You know that you're putting in the oats, you're putting in the butter, you're putting in the eggs, you're putting in the what else is in there? Sugar, right? So when you're doing it, you know everything that's going in to that dessert. So when you eat it, you're more conscious of what you're eating. You just know, you're like, oh yeah, I know that if I eat this cookie, I'm getting all those ingredients in my body. And you're not getting all the preservatives, right? Because most packaged desserts have to be packed with preservatives because they're going into the supermarket and they don't know when they're going to sell it to you. They don't know when you're going to eat it and open it up. They need that thing to stay fresh until you consume it, right? So that's something you eliminate completely out of your diet. And that goes for anything that's packaged in the grocery store. If there's like an expiration date of a year from now, you want to think twice about what's in that food. Right? So that's a rule that I live by, is like, if I want desserts, I'm going to make it. And that's something that's really saved me from, I don't know, like all the preservatives and all the excess sugars and things, because, when you buy desserts too, they want it to be extra delicious. So they're not going healthy at all. Sometimes you have the liberty of saying, oh, I'm going to substitute this butter for applesauce, or I'm going to substitute this sugar for honey, or whatever it is that you want to do, right? So I think it's really important that you think about that, and then think about how much of your grocery shopping is picking from the outskirts of the grocery store, right? And getting the real food items versus the middle aisles, where it's the condiments, it's the, it's the boxed food, right? A lot of frozen food is actually still very healthy and nutritious, especially if it's just real food. It's like, hey, I got frozen beans. They're just beans, right? The ingredients say beans, and they're frozen. They're still good for you. So I'm not against like frozen foods and stuff, but when you get a frozen dinner, right, and it's packed with all these ingredients that you can't pronounce, one of my rules is if there are more than 5 ingredients that I cannot pronounce, I'm not buying it. No, it's just like, I don't know what that is, this extra dextrose something, I don't know what it is, melatonin crap. I don't want that in my body. And so if you set some rules and parameters for yourself, hey, nobody's perfect. And I'm not saying you've got to be perfect. But what if you just uncomplicated your life for a moment and said, you know what, I don't need another diet. I don't need somebody to tell me the portions of carbohydrates and protein and fats that I can have every day, and everything that makes you feel so overwhelmed when it comes to food. What if you just decided that you're going to pay more attention to how you feel when you eat certain foods, so you know what kind of foods your body likes, and you think about those things being real food. So if it's yogurt, right? If it's eggs, it's eggs. If it's oats, it's oats. If it's fruit, it's a fruit. If it's a vegetable, it's a vegetable. If it's a grain, it's a potato, right? It's just real food. And the more that you can pack your refrigerator and your cabinets with real food, the healthier you and your family is going to be. right? And that's just the golden rule. So if you're looking at ingredients, and I highly encourage you to start being one of those people. I mean, today I've got my beet, carrot, and ginger juice here. And, you know, I find that I don't always have time to make a fresh juice. Like, who freaking has time for that, right? I hardly ever have time. But when I do, I've got the ingredients for it, right? Because those are the foods that I put in everything. I love boiling beets. I cut up beets and boil them all the time, just like potatoes. I eat carrots. I bake carrots all the time because I love them with a little olive oil and salt and pepper and spices. I love buying the whole foods, and like almost all my ingredients are fruits, vegetables, grains, and things that are just real. And I avoid getting a lot of condiments. And if I do get condiments, I use a very little bit. Because honestly, if you're buying condiments, most times you don't need a lot of it to get the flavor, especially if you start to train your palate not to get overly indulgent with flavors like that. If you're eating a lot of dressings and a lot of spices and condiments that are packed with sugars and sodium and things like that, then your body gets used to that. Your tongue starts getting used to that. And then you're like, well, everything tastes bland if it doesn't have a bunch of sodium in it, right? So you got to start training yourself. It's hard at first, you know, but then you start to taste your food again and you start to enjoy it more. And so when you think about, well, what can I substitute that I have right now with a real food product? Right? Just think about that next time you're in the grocery store and start getting obsessive about eating more real food. It's going to change your whole diet from the inside out. Because remember, from the time you put it in your mouth to the time it comes out the other side, a lot of things happen, and you're the one that decides how that process is going to happen. Because what you decide to put in your mouth is what is going to convey all the energy, all the excess, all of that elimination, whatever it is, and whatever stays in your body a lot of times can be very toxic, right? That's why I do a cleanse every year, because I know I'm not perfect. One of the things I want to share with you guys, and I think this is important because I don't want to be sitting here all preaching to you about, you know, eat real food and then you see me eating Cheetos one day, because I will eat Cheetos. Like, I'm not against Doritos either. They're kind of my favorite. But listen, I don't eat that stuff all the time. And you know what I tell my clients and I tell my followers? I say, junk food has a place. It just does not have a home. And this is important, and I teach this in the Sexy Confident Woman Formula, and I teach this in a lot of my other wellness and fitness and nutrition programs. It's that if you buy certain things and give them a home to live, then they're going to be in your life a lot more. You're going to be eating them a lot more. They're going to affect your life a lot more, have a greater impact on you. But all of them do have a place. We live in America for most of us, right? Like, that are listening to this podcast. I know I have a ton of followers in LA, New York, Chicago, lots of Canadians as well. So what's up? But those of you even around the world, I mean, you know that we have access to so much, right? I mean, yeah, like, I don't know, the food industry has created these like foods that are just so delicious and they make us addicted, and it's not fair, right? These things never existed before. So they're going to have a place. They're going to be at parties. They're going to be at social events. They're going to be everywhere in your face. They're going to be at the checkout line. Oh my gosh, you can't go to a checkout line now without all the candy and the chips and all those temptation junk foods in front of you. And so they do have a place, but if you always buy them and bring them home, that's when you have a problem. Like, I'll be on a road trip, I'll grab a bag of Funyuns, right? And I will be like, oh my God, these taste good. And then I'll have a stomach ache, right? Because I'm not used to it. So then I'm like, why did I do this to myself? But I'm not going to buy a bag of Funyuns at the grocery store. I mean, that's crazy balls, right? So you got to remember that this junk food, desserts and candies and processed foods and things like that, they have a place in the world, but they do not have a home where you live. And you got to make sure that your home is a place that provides you with the best nutrition. And if you go out and you have dessert at the restaurant, or you buy a bag of chips or a bag of candy on a road trip or with your friends at a party and whatever, then enjoy. Go for it. You know it's not going to feel good probably if you're not used to it, but enjoy, because that's life, right? And the thing to remember is that you can decide what you put in your grocery bag. And that's the most important thing. Get addicted to teaching your family that real food is where it is at. So I think that I got that, hit it home. I think that something really, really important to remember is, that mentioning of remembering that the ingredients are something you really want to look at, making sure that you're reading labels. It doesn't just matter how much sugar is in there, guys, because sugar's not always the worst ingredient in something. Okay, look at the other ingredients and look at what that is, because those processed preservatives and all the things that are in the ingredients down at the bottom, when there's like 20 of them and you can't read any of them or pronounce any of them, that's the problem with that product, not the amount of sugar. Because if they're saying no sugar and it tastes great, that's probably because of all the other things they added to it that aren't even real. They're fake, right? They're created in a lab, and then you're putting them in your body and they're foreign to your body. So your body's like, what do I do with this? Thank you very much. Now I have to store this somewhere. And it's giving us an acidity level that our body doesn't like. That creates an environment for sickness and disease. That's not something that we want. And so it's so important that you take this seriously and you say, you know what, for me and my family, we're going to have the best kept cabinets and all of that for the next however many years, right? And you're going to keep your family healthy and strong. So not only that, make sure today you have all real food. Make it a goal today. Say, what can I eat instead of this, since this is processed, right? Since this is packaged. And my husband will kill me because he loves pasta. And I know he loves pasta, so we have pasta occasionally, but I've been getting also like the chickpea pastas and some of that. And I look at the ingredients, and sometimes there's way too many ingredients. And I'm like, well, what is all this stuff? So I'm almost like, real pasta is almost better. Because if this kind of pseudo pasta has more ingredients than I even understand, and this other one is just wheat, then we're good. It's more real than the other kind of transformed pseudo pasta. So just look at labels. Make sure that you're shopping for the whole foods around that grocery store, and you treat your body right. I know it's going to serve you. It's going to simplify your nutrition. I always say simple is sexy, especially when it comes to food. So clear out the cabinets, my friends. Get real with your food, and I hope this served you today. I'll see you next time for principle number 8. Bye, guys.